Welcome back to Ride to Stream. Thank you for joining us. This is the place where we talk about TV and movies, and we're currently covering the first season of Lost. I'm Travis, and I am joined by one of my favorite people in the world, Miss Michelle. How are you today?
I'm good. It's Friday for us, so as we record this, and kind of our traditional day that we post a new episode up on YouTube for all your wonderful ears out there to listen to us and watch us if you choose to, but you can always have us going in the background. So yeah, looking forward to another. Good chat, deep discussion, uh, peeling away the layers of the onions, so to speak, that is lost.
One
So
big onion.
yeah, oh yeah, huge onion. I think we just kind of
So
scratched the surface, honestly, but
yeah. Um, so we're talking about episode 17.
mhm.
Which is called In Translation, which initially aired February 23rd, 2005. And this episode does have a song in it.
Mhm.
Um, and towards the end of the episode, the song titled Delicate by Damien Rice plays, which we will sure talk more about later on. Um, for everyone that is new, just give you an idea of what we do here. We kind of read a synopsis of the episode. We have a general conversation, and then we have a set of three questions, two or three questions that we go through each episode, to kind of narrow down favorite scenes, favorite characters, and then we'll throw in another question sometimes willy-nilly. And this episode focuses on Jin. There is, again, we're gonna say this a lot. There is a lot to unpack here. Um, and I am definitely looking forward. I am the resident veteran of Lost, as Michelle is the quote unquote
I'm the
newbie.
newbie.
So I'm always interested to see how you take each episode in. Um, because a lot of times like, oh, I've never thought of that. I think you have great insight onto like what the character's motivations might be, or see things that I never popped up in my brain before. Um, but I'm excited to get into it. If you're ready, I can just burst through the synopsis and then we can dive in.
Sounds good. I'm ready.
Okay, let's see here. Um, Here we go. The episode focuses on Jin, his life with Sun before working for her father, his life after he starts working for her father, and the accusation of sabotage. In this episode's flashbacks, we see Jin speaking to Sun's father, Mr. Pike, and explains that he's willing to do anything to make Sun happy and give her a good life. This even means working for Mr. Pike, but it is soon very clear that this new working relationship means being available at all hours and doing things that go beyond the measure of a good man. Jin is asked to send a message of displeasure to the Secretary of Environmental Safety when Mr. Pike's factory is closed, but when Jin gives him the verbal message, it does not change anything. So Sun's father tells Jin to drive an associate of his to the secretary's home to be taught how to deliver a message. One big, gigantic problem. The associate is in the back seat of the drive over, putting on latex gloves and fitting a silencer onto a gun. He tells Jin to keep the car running and not to speed after he finishes the job, which should take less than 2 minutes. Jin rushes into the home once they get there before the hitman can get out of the car and proceeds to beat the living hell out of the secretary. He tells him to open the factory tomorrow, and he tells him that he just saved his life. And although the message received is clear to everyone in that room, Jin suffers from the fact that he did such an awful act in front of his wife and daughter. Now, back on the island, Jin is butting heads with Sun, telling her to cover up when she wears a bikini. And then when she falls, when he tries to pull her away from the water, Michael intervenes. Jin does not like this. He shoves him away, but Sun steps in and slaps Michael in the face, later telling him that she was protecting him from Jin. This hostile encounter leads everyone to believe Jin is to blame when the massive raft Michael has been building gets torched later that night. The raft cannot be saved, and Michael asks where Jin is, but she does not respond. Sun finds Jin with burns on his hand and accuses him of setting the fire. Jin leaves, sleeps alone in the wilderness, but Sawyer soon finds him the next morning and brings him back to the beach, where Michael gives him quite the beating. And Michael would probably still be punching him to this day if Sun didn't shout for him to stop. In front of everyone, in English. That's right, the gig is up. It is soon realized that Jin did not start the fire, but attempted to put out the fire before getting badly burned. Locke tells everyone to wake up and says there are others on this island, everyone knows it, and they are the ones they should be worried about. Although that's not entirely true because Locke later talks to Walt and asked him why he burned down his father's raft. Apparently, he just didn't want to move him anymore. From Sun and Jin's relationship struggles, Walt burning down Michael's boat, and even Boone interfering with Shannon and Saeed's relationship by telling him not to take it personally when he gets dumped, it is safe to say that several characters had a rough go of it in this episode. Oh, and Hurley's CD player finally ran out of batteries. Son of a bitch. And that's an episode. So I am dying to know, watching this episode, what were your overall impressions of everything that took place? Like, and what we might have known about Jin and how that might perception might have changed through the course of this episode. Um, Starting back, I guess we dive into those flashbacks with Jin. How did this episode, how did you process it?
Well, gosh, I felt like there was a lot of turns back and forth. We get a little bit of lightness, like from Hurley trying to be a friend to Jin when everyone else was turning against Jin. Even though Hurley didn't understand and have the knowledge of the flashbacks that we have, because this is a second visit. Although the earlier episode, I don't remember which episode it was, um, focused in on Sun, we did get some of Jin's story as well. So for me, while as things were unfolding, I don't want to say it was predictable, but I did have an inkling of how things were going to go. It didn't, it didn't hinder my enjoyment, or understanding of the character. So I don't feel that for me, Jin necessarily became a different person in my eyes because I still felt kind of like Sun, that there was a tenderness there that she was attracted to. There was a tenderness and there was a love there that she truly believed to still be there. And it's only through this episode's flashbacks that we finally learn the complete story of the bathroom scene that
Yeah.
Sun in her episode is shared, and we get the same flashback again as almost emphasis. Hey, look, now you have her side and you have his side, and it's very sad. It's very tragic, and ultimately, I mourned the loss of their relationship in this episode. I'm just feeling that they wanted the same things, and it's almost like the story of the woman with the long hair and the man with the pocket watch, and they each sacrifice so much to give them something that they treasure, only to find out that they both gave up the things that, you know, uh, for each other's love. And I felt the similar belief with this story as well, between Sun and Jin, and felt that I just couldn't believe, not that I couldn't believe, but that witnessing the disintegration of a relationship built on love and built on, um, I would say, a relationship against the odds because of Sun's father and because of June's um, modest upbringing.
Yeah.
And yet, when Jun goes to Sun's father's to ask for approval to marry her, yes, we find out that he's willing to do anything, but we also find out in that flashback that Sun is his dream. That's the most important person in his life, and he's willing to do anything for that dream. Um, and that makes
What a
it,
way. Oh,
yeah, and to me, I
that's
felt like that
amazing.
made it even more tragic at the end when we find out that I think in the last flashback between Jun, who hasn't even said to anybody that his father was actually still alive. That's the other thing, because he was ashamed of the modest
Yeah.
upbringing that he had. Um, the fact that his father speaks such truth, and says, you know, John realizes that he's become something that he's not happy with, and he, you know, wishes for a good world in which, Son would hate her father, not him.
Yeah.
And just sadness all the way around with that. The fact that Jen's father says to basically run away, because John is supposed to take these watches to LA, and his father says, don't do anything more, just walk away. Save your marriage, save the relationship that you have with your wife. So the fact that that was kind of on his mind and what he was planning to do, and the fact that Sun was getting ready to walk away too, but she truly believed that Jun loved her. And when he gave her the flower at the airport, we find out that, you know, there was a lot of depth to this relationship. And it was hard to see in the opening where she's in the two-piece suit. He's trying to drag her from the beach. She falls. It's just heart-wrenching all the way through
Yeah.
that relationship. And um, rewatching it again to take notes, just uh, I don't want to say was a Debbie Downer, but kind of was, because of the fact that in the end, it was too late for them. I hope it really truly isn't, and that they'll be able to find their way back to each other. Um, but right now, it looks like, boy, that relationship is totally over. And that hurt, just like it hurt when Hurley's Walkman finally died.
Uh,
I
well,
was
I
just
will
like,
say
yeah.
heart-wrenching is the word I wrote down in my notes.
Hmm.
That's spot on. When she's talking to him at the end of the episode and she talks to him in English, so he won't understand that she said she was going to leave him, but she didn't because she believed that he still loved her. I mean, that's heartbreaking. And then the very next scene, you see Jin crying to his father about how ashamed of him he was. And also, Jin's father, how amazing is he? Like the complete opposite of Jack's father. Like
Hmm.
he like when you bring up the fact that he says to go away, he says never come back,
Yeah.
knowing that he has to never come back to be safe, which also means he would never see his son again. Um, so I think that just speaks volumes to I feel like the person that Jin is comes from his father. So there is that like you mentioned that tenderness, that caring heart is in there somewhere that's been like demoralized by what he's had to do for his father. And that scene in the bathroom where it shows him like we get kind of the extended scene this time where we see like his hands shaking and he starts to cry about what he's done.
Yeah.
Um, and I wanted to ask you about that scene because Sun doesn't answer, but Kate in the scene asks why or what made Jin change. And that's when before the raft bursts into flames. But in that bathroom scene, Jin is probably in shock for what he did. And, Sun is trying to kind of like, you know, shove him and just kind of like get him to respond to her. And I think he kind of like just says like, I think he
He
pu
pushes her back.
pushes her aside to
Yeah.
like, and then she slaps him. Um, do you think being slapped could be part of the reason why his demeanor towards her isn't always as affectionate? And then a follow-up, something I didn't think about that I'm thinking about now is Jin then sees her slap Michael,
Hmm.
which could Jin then be thinking, well, you slapped me and you're supposed to love me? Because he does ask if there's something between them. But going back to the slap, do you think that could be like that whole do you think that just wraps up the whole bathroom scene where that's where they start to fall apart?
That's probably part of it. As you were talking, I kept thinking back to how cyclical the storytelling is in Lost and how we'll often get booked in within the same episode or maybe within a couple of episodes. Um, how cyclical life is for all of these survivors. The fact that, in this episode, we actually saw Hurley on the television at the secretary's house, and he's, like it looks like he's kind of waving people away so he can get into a car and leave. So, very curious what that's all about. But I do feel like the nature of the slap has different meanings, and I think that that's part of Lost, almost exploring an action from different directions. Uh, like when Sun slaps Michael, it's like, hey, wake up. I'm slapping you to protect you. Um, and for Sun, when she slaps Jun, it's almost something very similar. But I think she slapped Jen harder because I think he was so caught up in the moment and washing his hands and not paying attention to her so they can talk.
Yeah.
Uh, but after she slaps him, he almost has a similar look to Michael, like that just breaks trust, you know, like you wouldn't do that to somebody, right? And I note in here that she slapped him hard. He stops what he's doing and he faces her and he tells her, I do whatever your father tells me. I do it for us. And I think that that's a break in because um, if she's willing to hurt him then what is her nature when what he's getting is hurt by her father too,
Yeah.
versus the love that he gets from his own father that he, you know, apologizes for being ashamed of, and yet his father takes him right into his arms and embraces him, advises him, you know, to walk away from it all, which means that he has to walk away from his own dad, like you were saying. So I do feel like there's similarities in that slap because even Michael responds similarly, and I think that that is deliberate, that he said, I'm going to concentrate on the boat. I want to get off this island. That's my focus. That's my problem. Your problem is you and Jun. And whatever's going on in between you guys is for you to deal with, not me, you know? And I think that that helps to kind of give us a little bit of insight to later in the discussion when Jen thinks it's too late for them. I think they both
It,
sacrifice so much. Um, and I do kind of wonder, I wrote down what she said in English because she asks him in Korean, what did she do to make him despise her? Then he says, when did we stop talking? So I think that that also adds to the total breakdown of communication, and probably the love between them that had been pure is now tainted by all these things going on.
yeah.
And she asks him in Korean, when did we stop talking? And he just starts to walk away. Then she says in English, I was going to leave you. He stops and he actually turns around. And I do kind of wonder if maybe he does have some understanding of English. Um, then she goes on to say, I was going to get away, but you made me change my mind. You made me think that you still loved me. And then
Oh,
and there's, her eyes are watering. He's getting emotional. And in Korean, she says, I want to go back to the beginning. Can't we just start all over? And then that's when we have the last flashback, sorry.
that's
And
okay.
and Jen even says, we don't talk anymore because I can't tell her about her father. In a good world, she would hate him, not me. But his father, who is an optimist, tells him that it is a good world. But, Jen says, but you don't know what I've done. To which his father says, it doesn't matter what you've done. You're my son. Just incredible and powerful. And that's when he says, we'll go to LA, do this job, and then just
And
stay
does
there.
does Jin say something similar to what Sun said, where he wishes he could start over, or wishes they could? Did he
I I
mirror
think
something that she said?
I think he may have, or maybe it's a little bit more implied. His thing that he says when his father says, well, why can't you start over? And Jen says, because he has responsibilities. And the father says, well, are those responsibilities more important than son?
Yeah.
And, that's when Jen says about going to LA on behalf of son's father. And that's when Jen's father says, well, do it and walk away. Work on your relationship, save the marriage. And he doesn't say. And yet, now we're at this point where, you know, I think he's still reeling from the fact that his wife speaks English and understands and has known the entire time everything that's going on. Um, and how crushing that was. And even Sawyer even says, by the look of your husband's, the way your husband's looking, He obviously didn't know you could speak English and understand us. You know,
Talk about
yeah.
feeling alone.
Oh,
Wow.
yeah. You know, isolated, alone, um, maybe understanding a little bit of English, maybe not completely. And now to find out he must feel totally alienated, um, has been lied to, that his wife's a traitor, maybe. Um,
Yeah.
you know, who knows how much she understood of when she said she had planned to leave him.
Yeah. That's something I hope we find out. Again,
Yeah,
even though I've watched Lost before, I don't remember a lot of it. And like that's such an enticing thing to want to come back to and be like, okay, can we get them again in the next episode so we can like find out like
yeah.
what's gonna happen? And Jin at the end, after leaving Sun, is on the beach with some wood
With Michael.
with Michael and just says boat,
Oh,
basically saying, I'm here to help you. And this is after Michael decks him,
a
after
couple
Jin
of
accuses
times.
Sun of potentially like having something with Michael. And it's like, holy crap. Like
He wants
that's
off the island. He wants away from Sun. And what's interesting is that, oh crap. What was I just gonna say about that? I feel like I think they both believe each other. I mean, because Sun initially thinks that Jun might have set the fire to the raft. She does kind
yeah,
of, and I,
she saw his burned hands and she
yeah,
immediately goes
what the
like
heck?
you did it?
Yeah. And, again, if she truly believed in her husband, she would know that he wouldn't do something like that. But the
Yeah.
fact that the deterioration of their relationship has gotten to the point where they're not even talking, you start to believe that maybe that person could do this or could do that. And I think that that's the situation that they both are in during this episode, that you find that they, all the way up to this point, they still talk, they interact. You can tell that there's some love there, but there's also that strong sense of protection by Jin. And I think that that arises from all that he's gone through to be with her.
Yeah.
Um, all that he basically gave up. He sold his soul, to her father in order to be with her. Um, and then he must feel betrayed by how she behaves, and the fact that she's not being modest in her dress. Um, yeah, I actually didn't see anything wrong with the two-piece. It was a more modest outfit. I mean, she wasn't wearing a thong, for goodness sakes, and she was
Yeah,
appropriately
it makes you
covered.
wonder. It's like is that just part of his broken nature now, where he just like trying to control something, and he can't even like get her to listen to him, even though he's being unreasonable.
Yeah.
Like, it makes me wonder if that's like where that comes from, where he's just like, nothing is going the way it should be going, and like I can't even get her to like talk to me or listen to me, and I don't know.
Respect how I feel. Yeah, it comes down to the fact that while he continues to be alienated, and has no friends there to speak of. I mean, Hurley does try, and it is
Oh,
humorous that he does give it that social
Hurley's so
worker try.
great. He's so great. I mean, he comes up to him, Jin's on the golf course smashing rocks with golf clubs. And Hurley just comes up and he's got two fishing poles. Like, dude, look, I think you could relax. Like, let's
Let's
go
go
fish.
fish. Yep,
And I appreciate his character so much. And again, I will say, I can't believe we're 17 episodes in and we still haven't gotten a full Hurley episode. I think it's the next one.
it is. It's the next one called
That's
Numbers, so that should be good.
like
Yeah,
I that's something I didn't remember initially watching. I didn't realize it was this long before discovering any backstory with Hurley.
yeah. which is so interesting because Hurley is pretty much in every, I think has been pretty much in every episode, even if it's a small part, but he does have a big presence, um, because of his sense of nurturing and trying to be a mediator to try to get in between and, you know, um, break things up to try to, loosen the heavy moments that are, you know, unfolding in the episode. So it is interesting that, we won't get his story until next week, episode 18, to go through 18 episodes before we hear about this person who cares a lot about other people, brings up concerns like lack of food, lack of water, the need to have some sort of tension breaker. So he creates the golf course to try to keep people at peace and things like that. Um, and then when he just wants to listen to a little music, his Walkman breaks. It's
Yeah,
just it. The other thing that I would say that because he finds out that Sun is able to speak English and understand English, he must also think, how much has she interacted with others without his knowledge? Because
yeah,
obviously she's been able to talk to Michael, she's been able to talk to Kate uh, quite a bit, because, Kate is just trying to understand the relationship, which I liked. She wasn't like trying to say, son, break up with him already. She
yeah,
was like, help me to understand, because what I'm seeing of Jun is a more violent, intense person, and
yeah.
he seems totally opposite from you. Help me understand why you're staying with him, and I appreciated that. I think the same or similar tone was with Locke and Walt. When, Locke has a smile on his face, I think he really does genuinely like Walt,
Yeah.
and does really care about him and does treat him like an equal. And he says, hey, I just want to ask you a question. Why did you burn the raft? And Walt pauses, and, good on Walt for saying, well, Locke says, I'm pretty sure you had a good reason. And that
And he,
allows
yeah, and he
Walt,
says he's not going to tell anyone, and
yeah. And I think
um,
that dialogue went really well too. I actually jotted in my notes up at the top, that I wanted to really give a shout out to, the writers in for this episode specifically. Just the words that they used, the cadence, the pauses, um, every every dialogue was powerful and meaningful. I mean, they are in every, but in this particular episode, I felt like the relationships and the betrayals, um, were all handled very well. So it's Javier Grayo. I don't know how to pronounce this, like Markach. I don't know. And I apologize for really screwing that up. But Wikipedia will definitely show you the correct spelling. And Leonard Dick are the writers for this episode. And, a shout out to Tucker Gates because, we've talked about, the cinematography, the shots, are all done very nicely here, um, just with the looks and things like that. Um, Maggie Grace, I believe, is plays Sun, and Jun is played by Daniel Day Kim. Just applaud all of that, because
everything feels so authentic.
yeah, altogether it just is perfection. I really, really believe. And I don't know if you picked up, but the in translation, the ellipse and then in translation, I went and I looked up because of the fact that it reminded me of Lost in Translation. And that actually came out in 2003, directed by Sofia Coppola, starring Bill Murray and, of course, Scarlett Johansson. And, all that kind of midlife crisis, questions about marriage, fidelity. Do I really want to be with this person and things like that? And I thought it gave a really nice nod to that film, which was very popular in 2003, 2004, and is a staple of, I think, cinema. When you're misplaced in another culture and how you handle and how you either assimilate in or make efforts to understand other cultures, and what it's like to not be able to understand. So, because everyone else is talking another language around you, and you're like, I wonder what they're saying. Are they talking about me? Yeah. Are they talking about my purple hair? Or
Can I just
whatever.
say,
So,
I am an idiot. I never even contemplated the show called Lost and then the episode title in translation didn't even register at all. Um,
that's why you have me here
so, um,
to help with those little nuggets.
I, thank you.
You're welcome.
Um, but something but I feel like Hurley, I
Hmm.
was laughing earlier to myself, when you were talking about Hurley because when Son reveals it to everyone and everyone's like, you speak English? Why didn't you tell us? And he's just like, didn't see that coming. Like, it's just
Yeah,
like, he, he has such a lovable vibe.
he does.
Sorry, I got sidetracked there.
But it also is interesting because Hurley voiced in like a couple episodes ago that the rumor was that Jun spoke English or
Yeah.
understood English. So I think that's why he's like, well, didn't see that coming because I believed that it was Jun that understood me. And there's even
Oh,
kind of
that's
a
a good
little bit of
point.
cues that maybe Jun does have some understanding of English because, when Hurley says, hey, dude, well, if you want to be an outsider, you go ahead. I tried. And he walks away. And John takes a big sigh. Like, and I don't know if that's a big sigh, like, oh, I'm glad he's gone, or more of a like, I don't know what to do, type of sigh.
Yeah.
I'm
So
just lost.
and I think that goes with you giving, kudos to, the team behind the camera, like giving that kind of direction to the cast where it's so multi-layered, and it makes the show so well-rounded because there are these questions that just seem natural to ask, and
Hmm.
then the behaviors that they put out there, especially with Jen, because with Hurley when he got stung by the in the water and Jin's there trying to help him and he talks about the rumors that you speak English and then his next thing is your wife is hot and Jin kind of like pauses and looks back at him. So it's like and
Yeah.
he does say boat.
Mhm.
So it's like where is the line of like what's reality and what's just in our heads of or what's in the characters' heads of what they believe. So
Yeah.
I think that's what makes the show so fun is that you're literally following along most of the time with the same information that the rest of the cast has. Unless you're Locke, because he seems to know almost everything.
He does.
Um,
Yes.
uh,
The
is this the
all-knowing
first time that
Locke.
we've seen him frustrated or angry when he kind of like blows up on the beach, telling like, why are we blaming each other? Like, we know there are other people on the island, and
He
like
he
and I
does
don't know if
kind
he's
of
just like that because he's like tired of everyone like bickering with one another. Like he kind
he's
of like with
deflecting.
Shannon does the same thing.
He's deflecting. I
Hmm.
truly believe he's deflecting and taking the heat off of Walt because he already knows Walt did it. So I truly believe that he was deflecting and was it brings up the Shakespeare line, methinks thou dost protest too much. And I do think that um, Locke was really going counter to his demeanor and his character in that moment because he didn't look at the mob that started when they thought it was Jen. What
Yeah.
would happen to Walt if it got out that it was him? So I do think that Locke was genuinely trying to protect Walt and deflect and say, come on, people, there are others out here on this island. Look at all that they've done to us already. Why are you
Yeah.
thinking that it has to be Jen? He didn't do it for Jen. He did it for Walt. I,
Yeah.
I sincerely believe that that's why he did it. And that's why he was so adamant.
Locke's so good.
He is.
And the
He is.
conversation with Shannon's great. Um,
Hmm.
and we can talk about that now, but I will say, because we've talked about quite a few scenes, do
Yeah.
you have a scene that stands out to you as being the top? Because I feel like there are several that could be at the top.
Yeah, so I kind of picked out three, and we've talked about all three of them. So I'm not going to really rehash other than to mention, but my honorable mentions are Hurley's efforts to provide Jen some friendship after the first major fight on the beach between him and Sun. When he's trying to get, hey bud, let's go fish, let's just
Yeah.
you know and that didn't work out. But it shows a lot of humor. It showcases Hurley, and I like that. The second one is Walt and Locke as they talk uh, around the backgammon. And so I thought that that was a really nice scene as well. And I thought it was, handled very well. I think it respected Locke's character as well as allowing Walt to grow as a character as well. And to not do a typical kid thing to say, I didn't do it. I don't know who did it, you know. Um,
Yeah.
and for him to have a safe space, to have a friendship with someone that's built on respect and mutual respect, I think. Um,
Yeah.
my standout, obviously, for me is Sun and Jun in the cave when she pleads for them to start over. Just that scene, the flashback as Jun talks to his father about the relationship, and then when they return back to the cave, present time, and tells Sun that it's over, that it's too late. That whole segment to me is just a very standout and it just heartbreaking. So
Oh,
yeah.
I mean, it's hard not to have a dry eye with that sequence followed by him with his father. Um, because his father does what I think a good father should be. Like, he doesn't chastise Jin for his feelings of being ashamed. He just supports him and wants him to be happy and live in a good world. And even if that means going very far away, and never seeing him again. So, yeah, I think that heartbreaking, heart-wrenching is the best way to describe that final scene with Sun Jin. I can't imagine other people playing these characters because they feel like they have such a genuine bond, even though there's friction there. The relationship that has been established that then's fallen apart seems like it's people that have known each other for years, and um, the fact that they're able to establish that kind of connection on screen is amazing. Um, I
So
don't
for you,
know. For me,
yeah, what
I
do you think was this your favorite or a standout?
I didn't make a
You
pick
didn't make a list?
going in. Huh?
You didn't make a list?
I did.
Oh, okay.
Um, so I also thought I picked three that stood out.
Hmm.
Um, I also mentioned Hurley's peace offering. Um, I just think it shows the type of person he is. He's a good person. Um, I also I love I'm not gonna pick this one, but I do want to mention Locke's advice to Shannon.
Oh, very
Um,
good. Yeah.
because obviously Saeed and Shannon like each other, but Boone tries to throw Saeed off his game by just saying, she likes older guys who can take care of her until she decides she doesn't need them anymore. Don't take it personally when she dumps your ass. Basically is what he's
Yeah.
saying. Um, and Locke, Shannon's talking about, hey, where's Boone? Tell him to leave me alone. And Locke's like, should I be writing this down?
I know. I love that. I love that. That's such a great that's typical Locke.
And he just says, hey, do you like Saeed? And if you do, what does that have to do with your brother? You're a grown adult, like, and he talks about like how she can like yell at him till she's blue at the face, but she would just be giving him what he wants, and she's like, "Well, what's that?" And he's like, "Your attention." Like, and he talks about again talking about you know the idea of the show, everyone starting with a clean slate.
Yeah.
Um, he tells her, "Hey, everyone should be able to start over on this island." And
Yeah.
it's like, maybe it's time you start yours. And I think she almost reacts like, I don't know, not say shocked by that comment, but I think that maybe triggers like, oh, maybe I can do what I want to do what I want to do and be happy with Saeed. But the scene I'll choose is Jin with his father. I think, we've seen Jack's father be cruel and extremely harsh with his words with Jack as a young boy and then manipulating him as an adult. And yes, we see some vindication to that when he talks to the Sawyer in the bar, um,
Hmm.
which I think is the last week's episode.
Yeah.
But, there's no sense of anger or frustration towards Jen for not visiting or being ashamed and having that type of bond that you can easily go back to because as soon as his father hugs him and basically, basically is telling him it's okay,
Yeah.
Jin starts helping him fish.
Oh
And they
yeah,
get
rolls
back
up the
to
sleeves and takes off
yeah,
his because he's in a nice suit, he's got money now. And the fact that, his father's more traditionally dressed, and he's dressed for, fishing, bringing it in. And yeah, the fact that John just gets right in there and starts almost like no time has passed.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I really love that scene. I think his father is just trying to do what's best for his son, and that I think he sees that his son needs to get away and
Yeah.
take care of his marriage. And I just appreciate that. So
Yeah. Well, and I think
no,
it's almost, as a parent, what you want to be able to be
yeah.
for your child or children. So,
big time. Um, Now, favorite character. Do we think this is an easy one, or uh, what say
okay.
you with regards to the favorite or most interesting character from this episode?
What says me is that it was an easy one. And all I wrote in my notes, without question, Jen.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I highlighted Hurley. I highlighted Jin's father. Um, but I think the the full circle of hell that Jin's going through in this episode is really apparent, and
Yeah.
the struggle is real.
Yeah, I felt so bad for him. And, obviously, as I expressed earlier in the episode, how much grief I felt for the loss of their relationship, because of all these other influences and how they grew apart and how sad that was. We see a microcosm of it, over the weeks. And then through the flashbacks, see the full effect of, you know, um, her family, specifically her father's influence over their lives, and the fact that he was on call 24/7. They didn't even go on a honeymoon, because he felt a commitment, that he wanted to show that he was committed to working for her father, and that he was exactly the man that should be with Son, and that he was going to do everything to not disappoint, especially since he said he would do anything, and she was his dream. So.
And can we highlight how Jin's misunderstanding of sending a message? Um, Her dad says, send him a message, and the message is, I am very displeased.
Hmm.
And so Jin goes over there. The dude's terrified, but he's just like, I'm just telling you that he's displeased with you. And the guy,
Hmm.
and that's where we learn Sun gets her dog from.
Yep.
Um, but then when her father is berating him, when he's losing millions because the factory's closed, and he's telling him, hey, you're going to drive this dude over to the secretary's house, and he's going to teach you how to deliver a message. In the car ride, Jin's learning, oh my God, the message was, I'm supposed to kill this guy? Like, talk about a mind shift of like what he thought reality was and what the
Hmm.
true expectation of that request was. I can't even fathom, like, I would be Jin. I'd be like, wait, what's going on here? Why are you putting on gloves? Wait, you've got a gun? And he's understanding the fact that, and so he has to make that decision to, I have to go in there and pummel this guy to save him.
Yeah.
I, it's insane.
Oh yeah. And the fact that next time, if the guy doesn't open the factory again, that guy's dead for sure. And maybe Jun as well. So, he doesn't
Yeah.
want to, because he initially goes in there, after delivering the message that, he's not pleased, delivering exactly what he thought he was supposed to do.
Yeah.
And he goes in there and they're still losing money. And he's thinking, he's in trouble. And no, the father wants to promote him to his new role as a very personal, special assistant. Um, you know, can
Hitman.
we, can we read that as, yeah, hitman or assassin? And that's never would have been John's choice. If he knew
No.
that's what was coming at the end of the line of getting married to Son, I don't know that he would have married her. I think he might have like said, I'm going to cut my losses here as much as I love her, but you know,
Yeah, because he's in it. So once he's in it, I don't know. Obviously, seeing that her father is willing to kill people, obviously he must feel like he's trapped in some way,
yeah,
which is probably why his talking to his father is so important because his father is giving him the out that, hey, you do what you need to do. So I find that scene like the reality check with Jin in that car ride over. Um, and let's see. Now I do have a third question.
Mhm.
Um, and it's kind of related to um, Lost usually leaves more questions than gives answers, and we usually don't learn things right away. Were you surprised that the person who set the fire, that identity was given up in this episode, given that like in previous things we still don't know about the monster, we didn't know exactly what, you know, or we still don't really know what Kate has done. We don't know all these people's pasts. They could have left it a mystery. And I guess a follow-up was, were you surprised that it was Walt?
I wasn't. Well, yes, I was surprised that it was Walt, particularly since we still don't know. I don't think we know still who conked Saeed over the head when they were doing the transmission towers way back in like episode 3, episode 4, whenever
Right.
that was. We still don't know if that who that was. I mean, I think we all thought it was Sawyer, but it turns out, nah, maybe it's actually Locke. Was it Locke? Well, we don't know. It's
Yeah.
not been revealed. So, I think I honestly believe that, okay, when we find out that it's Walt, it makes sense to give that up. I know. That's Tabby Trouble up there. That is the Tabby duo, and they like to do that. So,
Anyone watching, if you love cat action,
yep, this,
share
yep, right there, right there.
share with your
Don't
friends.
listen to us, just watch them. We'll narrate. And the two cats stared off at each other, and one pawed the other's head in anticipation of a strike back.
Uh, hey, it's Sun and Jin.
There we go. Yes, my own little son and Jen. And looks like Algernon won that one. And he's the little guy. But I think because we also get right near the end of the episode that another good scene actually is that Michael starts banging on the raft that's in ruins. There's nothing he can save. He's, banging on it and he's like, woe is this raft. It's a goner. And his son is standing right there.
Yeah.
And, he stops, he tosses down the stick and he goes to his son and he says, I am really sorry. I am really sorry. He says, this is life. And sometimes it's tough. And let's see, he basically, tells them that, you know, we're gonna rebuild. I haven't lost hope. Yes, this is a setback, but we're gonna try again. And I think that Walt responds and says, well, can I help? And so to find out that he is willing to help his dad on the next boat that they
Yeah.
build, and then to find out that he's actually the one that lit the fire. I think you kind of had to have those close together because you needed to be able to see um, his change and his what his actions kind of set off for the entire episode. But then the fact that in the end, maybe, the fact that he wants to help his dad build a new boat has allowed him to maybe see, hey, maybe going back to the city will be okay. Maybe it's just one more move, even though,
Yeah.
he says that um, he likes the island and he really doesn't want to move. and go anywhere else. I can understand that if you've been moving around, all 10 years of your life and never really getting to have friends,
Yeah.
and not being able to make roots that you would want to. The fact that, he's got Vincent there, he now has a dad that he's learning to get to know and understand who his father is, as well as the fact that he has a friendship with Locke that means a lot to him.
Yeah.
So, and Locke even, said, yeah, I really like this island too. That again is helping them to bond in a way that's different from Michael and Walt. So it'll be interesting to see, has Walt really reconciled that he's okay getting on that raft? I would be scared shitless to get on any raft. Um,
Go out in the middle of the ocean. Oh my
yeah.
gosh.
And
Not
to not
knowing if
know
you're going
where
to
they're
find a
at.
shipping lane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would
Um,
I would be scared shitless to want to get on that raft. And I kind of, even though his decision is, because he doesn't want to move around anymore, I would be afraid of dying out there on the ocean when you have stuff on the island to keep you going until somebody finds you.
yeah. Just thinking about Locke and the conversation with Walt, I feel like Locke and Hurley have this ability to kind of check in on people. I mean,
Hmm.
they have obviously different approaches, but um, and I feel like with a show like this, when you have these either intense action sequence happening, or in this episode, it's a lot of emotional turmoil. Like being able to kind of have this downtime where you're having these calmer conversations and you literally get to have characters checking in with each other to see how they're doing. I really think that it helps to balance the show so well.
Hmm.
Um, because I mean, the like you've said many times, Sun and Jin's relationship, it's heart-wrenching to think that it's over. And the the grief that she has at the end where she's trying to plead for him to like stay and he doesn't. Um, so I do appreciate these moments that we get with Locke and Hurley where they're just kind of, you know, it's almost like they're just trying to help people and they just want it's like they want people to be okay. Last week Hurley was checking on Charlie and um Locke had the comment with about the board and so he used his sisters death to kind of relate and bring Sawyer out of his funk. And this week he's talking to Shannon and Walt, and Hurley's talking to Jen, and I don't know. I I see those two as potentially my favorite characters of the show at this point. Um, just because they have this capacity to see beyond their own, I guess, desires or what they want to do. I guess a little more selfless to a degree.
Yeah.
I mean, again, Locke's methods, not the best example all the time, but um, I don't know. They just seem to be able to read the room really well.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think that there are others, like I feel like Kate checks in with Jack, Charlie
Yeah,
checks in with Claire. So there are check-ins, but I think balancing that between characters and creating that network, because because of the fact that there's, I think, like 44 survivors still
yeah,
on the island, or on the beach and up in the cave, that they can't all be, um, they can't all know each other right away. That's going to take time. We're now what, about a month in? I
yeah,
think we're about a month in to the survivors being on the island. So you would think that there's more interaction between everybody. And they'd at least know, oh yeah, that's Michael. Hey, that's Locke. Everybody should kind of know each other's names by now, I would think. Um, but you do have your little cliques, and I would agree. I think that's a good observation that Locke and Hurley have those kind of demeanors. Locke is the roughy, kind of rough around the edges. Hurley is the big teddy bear, that's going around. But I'm sure he's got a backbone too. And there's certain things that he's probably not going to put up with, if push comes to shove. But generally speaking, he is one of those people that is more approachable. And even though that's Cleo. Hi, Cleo. Hey, getting lots of cat sightings this morning. So, um, the fact that, the writers have kind of spread that around is very helpful. And I think it's a great way to distribute scenes, so that way we can get to know the characters and we can kind of develop who our favorites are. Um, I'm kind of thinking we're going to have like a end of season one wrap up, I think, where we kind of talk about, our what we think about the characters so far. Um, at least as the newbie, I will try to guess what I'm thinking is going to happen, and maybe to some of them, I know you can't do that, but just to kind of where we'd like to see it going, maybe, and then kind of just talk about some of the highlights, maybe about
I, I
about.
think we should put it on the books. I would love to do a recap, especially knowing that you are through 21 episodes, so you haven't finished the first season.
No.
And if we do a recap,
Yep.
second season is going to be all brand new. And so we can kind of focus that on like where you would like to see the characters go,
Hmm.
what you think might happen. Um, we can highlight favorite moments, favorite characters. Maybe pick a favorite episode or
Yeah.
two. Um, that would be great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I think you
Well,
were thinking you had a, let's see, we did the third question.
yep.
Um, I do want to do a plug because we've talked about it a little bit before, so give me just a second.
Just looking through my notes to see if there's anything that um
So
we
I
touched on
know
everything.
we'll have in the show notes, as we occasionally mentioned, we have other projects that we are working on. Um, this is one of the projects that we're doing. We're doing this one together, but like Travis, you have a Substack, and you also do writing for Fan-Based Press for Geeky Parent Guide, as a parent and a geek, and helping your children to navigate geekiness, and embrace that in all the ways that they want to, or maybe not so geeky, but whatever the case may be, however the wind blows that day. Uh, I also have a separate project, and that is that I started doing my own YouTube where I'm talking about my book challenge this year, trying to do 60. So, oh my God, they're just so cute. Sorry, easily distracted by my kitty cats. That's what I love right there. Them together being best buds. Um, but one of the books I've committed to reading this year, and is directly an influence for Lost, is Lord of the Flies. And of course, in this episode, we had Sawyer specifically make mention of this book.
Yeah.
And so I would just encourage, if anybody wants to follow my book challenge through the year, I am planning to read this, with the mindset of actually kind of identifying places where this book has influence on Lost, because I thought, given the fact that, in the little bit that I have read, this is one of their influences. Obviously, we're talking about other pop culture like Lost in Translation being pulled in and explored more fully in the various episodes. I am going to do that with this book. So definitely check the show notes, look at our other projects, help support our other projects. We do this for free. We don't want to do it for free, but we like to get a little dinero. But
Always helps.
it always helps because we are both self-employed. So, yeah, but just having butts in the seats and viewing our other stuff and, you know, clicking a like, subscribing, hitting the notification bell, leaving a comment, even if that comment is a symbol showing support of what we're talking about is always appreciated. So anyway, that's my little shameless plug because we have brought up Lord of the Flies. It seems that for Sawyer, who seems to be have the illusion of being somewhat Southern ignorance, I'm going to say, and I'm not putting that out there to be derogatory. It's just that is kind of a trope that's out there that, definitely Sawyer's bucking the system. And he's obviously read. So the fact that even though you can read
Little
this,
me.
yeah, even though you can, this is often a sign, it not always is, depending what school. But I'm looking forward to reading the book and being able to. Um, kind of identify areas where this book has influenced the show. So anyway,
Yeah.
just my little plug.
No, that's great. I think, you know, we have these projects that we work on that we try to make money from, and the Ride to Stream is kind of our, you know, it's a great way to unwind, and we get to, I mean, we've been talking about different shows and movies for years, and I know Nick is the one that said, "Hey, you guys should just record it and put it online in a podcast." And we were like, "All right." And we started with YouTube, obviously, but I mean, it's this, much like me writing, never feels like work. Um, so if we can help each other by boosting our other projects and say, hey, if you want to support us in any way, so I think that's great. All that stuff will be in the description. If you want to leave a comment, if it's anything beyond this episode, just leave a spoiler tag so that way Michelle doesn't get spoiled with any future episodes that she hasn't watched. Um, and if you want to talk about something in the episode that we didn't bring up, please let us know what that is. And if you have a different character that you think shined more than Jin in this episode, let us know. Um, I think other than that, unless you have any other notes, I think all of my highlighted notes have been covered.
Yeah,
Um,
mine too. Just we'll call out again music scores, the nice I'm not familiar with Damien Rice, so I wasn't familiar with the song. But it fit in nicely. It was too bad that it got kind of ended pretty abruptly. But again it
Such a clever scene.
yeah, it really is. So definitely if you haven't watched Lost in quite a long time, definitely go back, take another look at it. Travis, you're a great example. You remember lots, big swatches of things, but it's those details that
Yeah.
get
And there's
lost
so
over
much.
time. Yeah, and just really goes to show how brilliant and special this television series was back in the day when it came out, and how I think there's relevancy to it today. Um,
Big time.
so yeah, I I think it's maybe a wrap for this week, and next week we get to learn about Hurley. I can't wait.
Yes, I'm looking forward to that.
Me too. Well, thanks everyone for joining us again today. Um, Obviously, we post every Friday, so definitely hit the subscribe, notification bell, leave a comment, or a little icon of a book or something in support of what we do. We do really appreciate that you stopped by and wanted to hear what we have to say about loss. That means a lot to us. We sincerely appreciate all that support and the fact that you are either new or returning we we appreciate that you're here.
Big time.